From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest, you're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
3 Star Wars movies to be released in 2022, 2024, 2026. We're talking about that story and much more right now on Beyond the Blast Doors Live, episode 64. David Amilati with you, David Gilbert with you, Jesse Buck with you in this moment. And we're talking about Star Wars. And really excited for the conversation that we're going to have in the next 60 minutes. A lot of information, a lot of laughs, and I think a lot of insight and probably a Boba Fett reference somewhere along the lines here. But I do want to welcome you. If this is your first time, welcome into our Star Wars conversation. If you're a familiar face, if you're a good old friend of the show, welcome back. I want to remind you that this is Beyond the Blast Doors. It is our Star Wars conversation, movies, TV, comics, toys, cosplay. We talk about it all. We have opinions. Some would call them hot takes. I won't do that because I think that's like overindulgent. But I do always stress that have your opinion. Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll disagree, but as long as we're respectful. We like that positive vibe out there in the Star Wars community. But a loaded show, guys. We're talking about new movies. We have that fan edit of the New Hope duel, Kenobi Vader. I know that got you excited, Jesse.
Oh, yeah. I had fun watching that.
Though, will you edit it into your copy of A New Hope?
No, I'll explain why later.
And that's fine. That's a good tease. We're also going to be talking about Galaxy's Edge, and we have kind of an exclusive interview taking place after the show today. We'll explain that more in a little bit, but that'll be content. If it's not an exclusive for our podcast listeners, that will be a full interview that you'll be able to watch on the YouTube channel and on next week's show. So first things first, before we get into the show on this day in Star Wars, give us a sense of where we've come from, David.
David, we've had a couple birthdays we get to celebrate today. First is Sarah Kestelman. She voiced Darth Traya in Star Wars: The Knights of the Old Republic #2, the Sith Lords. Our one and only General Hux, Domhnall Gleeson, was born this day. And then 1999, you might have been standing in line to pick up your ticket for the advanced pre-sales that started for The Phantom Menace.
You know, if you actually were to go online and look at on this day, Wikipedia does a great job of tracking all the events. So much like comic book news from the expanded universe time, and it was just too much to list. But I can relate to the Phantom Menace stuff because I wasn't in line, but my dad got me the tickets. I was not allowed to go, but Dad got the tickets, and it was really great. But Jesse, did you, maybe if you're watching on the YouTube stream, you saw Jesse kind of rise up a little bit when he heard Knights of the Old Republic mentioned. Talk about a guy who is really rooting for Benioff and Weiss to do Age of Republic movies. Great game.
It is.
Great character, I should say.
I've played the first one, I think, 3 times through. I'm not very good at it.
You have a lot of time on your hands.
So can I tell you my experience with Knights of the Old Republic?
Oh, no.
So a few months ago, we reported that Steam had a sale on a lot of the Star Wars games. So I bought Knights of the Old Republic #1 and 2. And I figured, of course, to play #1 first, so I knew what was going on. So I played this game for like 3 hours, and I'm like finally getting a whole handle on the controls and how you're supposed to play the game. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to be done for a bit. So I like close out of the game. I go back into the game, and guess what didn't save? The 3 hours that I played. So I would like to say that this is the only time I did that, but then I played like another 2 hours to try to catch back up, and I did it again.
No.
Well, I feel really bad about it that happened to you. But
so I may be done with this game and going on to #2 and just picking it up from there.
See, I would say third time's the charm. I would try it one more
Third
time.
time's charm?
Because that original is so beloved by fans, and it's why there's such this push for Benioff and Weiss to go back before this Skywalker saga to tackle in their movies, and we'll get to that in just a second because we are talking about those 3. But I thought it was really important that we get, as always, kind of a where have we come from here in the Star Wars galaxy on this day. So David, thank you for that, and just a reminder for you that you can always catch Beyond the Blast Doors live every Sunday 11 a.m. Central Time, which I've learned is not 11 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll explain that also later. But we also want to remind you that you can catch us on the Rewind. If you don't catch the live stream on YouTube, you can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud in podcast form. So with that said, did I forget anything? I feel like we should think a sponsor or something. What do you say, Jordan? Should we think the sponsor? At some point, the Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri, because they are the proud sponsor of Beyond the Blast Doors. They have comics, they have games, they have Magic the Gathering, collectibles. They have everything. They're a proud sponsor of this show, and they've been proudly serving St. Louis since 1981. That's the Fantasy Shop franchise. but it's the Maplewood store that sponsors this show. We appreciate them. So we've told you about when and where and how you can watch or listen to us. We've told you the people that are willing to sponsor this production. Let's go ahead and dive into it. The first topic of our show on this episode 64 is 3 new Star Wars movies. We knew movies were coming, but we now have their theatrical release date. So we know it's December 2022, 2024, and 2026.
I'm glad they're finally going back to December releases. I hope they learned their lesson with like Solo, that they just need to dominate that December box office.
And it seems that's the case because what we've gotten from Disney Studios is a new schedule of movies that reflects the acquisition of Fox. And so now you're seeing a lot of new titles and you're seeing familiar titles shifted. Like New Mutants might never happen, folks. I'm sorry about it. But it looks like Star Wars and Avatar will be alternating that Disney family season slot for the next several years. And so when we first got this news, everybody gets excited. We did I don't want to say a very nice article because I wrote it, so that would be overindulgent as well. But we did do a write-up on BeyondTheBlastDoors.com where we kind of just broke down, we gave you the whole slate. We talked about, who could possibly be in charge of those movies. And we'll get to that in a second. But Jesse, I want to start with you as far as, is 2022 too soon or not soon enough for new movies after the conclusion of the Skywalker saga this December with The Rise of Skywalker?
I think it's perfect because, we're getting episode 9 this year, this December, and that's going to be it for movies. So it's technically, we're going to have a 3-year gap as far as movies go, potentially, unless they have a Easter egg for us at a next year's celebration in Anaheim. But a lot of people are like, well, what am I going to do? Well, you've got The Mandalorian coming and you've got Clone Wars coming, and rumor has it that The Mandalorian's already been renewed for a second season. That's how confident they are in that live action show that's coming to Disney Plus. So it's not like we're going to be void of Star Wars stuff. There's going to be books and comics, obviously, they also fill in that time too. Again, as David Gilbert mentioned, I think, we had Last Jedi followed by Solo. I think it was too close together. They should have spaced those apart. I think Solo probably would have done a little bit better in the box office. If you still haven't watched Solo, go watch it. It's a great movie. But, people were complaining, like, I'm going to be such and such age, but by the time this comes out, it's like, so?
My thing is, the 3-year gap isn't anything unfamiliar to Star Wars fans. I mean, think about this. Look at the gap between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace. Don't complain. Think about the gap between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. Again, don't complain. And when you're thinking about 99 to 2002, 2002 to, 2005, I mean, this is nothing unfamiliar. And Jesse, you made such a great point. What you pacify the time with is Disney Plus. You're going to get theatrical quality content with Mandalorian. You're getting the Clone Wars back. The Cassian Andor series is there. And I will tell you, I think there's a chance that we would return to the Star Wars story format of movies with the streaming service. Bob Iger has been quoted several months ago saying that wouldn't be the case. But I think Disney Plus does change everything. And I think it's going to make them a buttload of money. And I think that's your opportunity. You're either going to get that Obi-Wan movie there or that Obi-Wan series. We think it's an Obi-Wan series, according to a report from John Hoey over at Star Wars Newsnet. That was a few months ago. We had him on the show, episode 50-something, interviews on the YouTube channel. So you have all this great storytelling. You're just going to be going a different place. You're not going to the theater the next 3 years after The Rise of Skywalker. You'll be at home, streaming. And that's totally fine. But the next question is,
what story are they going to tell?
Well, what story they're going to tell and who's going to be telling that story? Because there's what we know is 2 camps, right? There's the Rian Johnson trilogy. There's the Benioff and Weiss trilogy that they're directing, or they're writing at least. I don't think they're directing it. They're writing it. Johnson's writing and directing his, and they're supposed to be together. I believe it was Kathleen Kennedy said that these 2 trilogies would be forming the next saga in Star Wars.
Oh, they have confirmed they're going to be together?
I believe it was Kathleen Kennedy that said that. I can double check that, and I can maybe that's a write-up I do on the website, but I'm pretty sure out of Star Wars Celebration, it was Kathleen Kennedy that was quoted. It might have been this interview with Steele Saunders. But the two trilogies will kind of work together to make that next saga in Star Wars. So, David, what do you think this is going to be? I mean, what do we know right now about Rian Johnson and Benioff and Weiss? Because they're both working on projects, technically, right?
That news kind of changes what I was thinking about, because I I didn't go to Celebration.
What were you thinking?
I was still thinking that they were going to be two separate things. The Johnson was going to be like this own corner of the galaxy that we're going to get something brand new, and then we still didn't know what Benioff and Weiss were doing, but based off the success of Game of Thrones, something grittier, something more down, in the dumps, maybe something more Knights of the Old Republic theme, which we've talked about a number of times. Internet's a buzz about that, but learning now that they're going to be kind of put together, that could be interesting because they have very different storytelling styles. I mean, just look at Game of Thrones and you look at The Last Jedi, and they are very, very different in how they're presented to the viewers.
But is this an opportunity? Like, if I'm thinking of Age of the Republic, you could do like one trilogy could be about the Sith, and one could be the Jedi, and then like the third movie for both would actually then be colliding.
Together?
I've heard that idea. Or, there's a few ways I guess you could do that series if they're interlocking. Maybe they're just jumping in different parts of the era. I'm not quite sure, but it excites me that there is that maybe cohesion to form that next saga. Benioff and Weiss, though, I guess we've been continually talking about their trilogy because Game of Thrones premiered, that final season premiered while we were at Celebration. They said that once they finished with that series, that finale, they would start on their trilogy. And they've been probably doing some design work in the meantime as far as like, people got to get hired. They got to do their jobs and such.
Right.
But, is 2022 going to be a Benioff and Weiss, and a 2024 is going to be a Johnson, and they're just going to be flip-flopping? Or is this going to be like Benioff and Weiss doing 22, 24, 26, and then the Rian Johnson trilogy?
I would rather see, like, okay, so whether it's Johnson's 3 movies first, followed by their 3 movies, or vice versa. And I'm not trying to, like, rehash all the complaints of the last year. That's been the biggest complaint that people have had with Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, is that he seemed to have kind of disregarded what was set up in The Force Awakens. Now, that opinion might change still, considering...
But how does that even be a concern for you? Because we know that he's dealing with a new time period, brand new characters. There's no attachment. He can do literally whatever he wants.
As far as if the stories are entwined together, I don't want to see them rotate the movies together, because I still, at this point, I still feel like he could have done a little bit more to tie in The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. Now, again, with Episode 9 coming out, that opinion may change. It may all tie in together, and you might look at the whole, 3 movies that we've had.
In JJ, we trust.
Okay, it tied in great. It's fine. But I'd rather just see them like, Benioff and Weiss do their 3 movies, or, Johnson do their 3 movies first. And then, one of the other picks.
I'm with Jesse on that one, because I think if you kind of zipper them together and go back and forth, Rian Johnson would have to go first, because if Benioff and Weiss do their first movie, and then Johnson does his first movie, and then Benioff and Weiss are second, we may see what Johnson's already done before, where he just sweeps some stuff under the rug that he doesn't want to deal with.
Yeah, if it's truly if it truly connects to be the same saga, you definitely want those 3 to be in the room together, planning that story, making sure that it is cohesive. But again, those are the words, I believe, again, from Kathleen Kennedy from Star Wars Celebration. And so we'll continue to follow how that develops.
Did I read somewhere that at Celebration, Kathleen kind of said that she was going to retire in 2021 or 2020?
I don't.
Kind of after this?
No.
I didn't hear anything personally about that, but...
I feel like the internet would be blowing up if that had happened.
I mean, I'm not looking forward to that, because I think she's done some amazing things, but I would also kind of like to see, if we're going to continue with all of these Disney Plus shows and movies, a more concerted writing effort to tie everything together like we get with Marvel, as opposed to the format we've had for the last decade with Star Wars, where the director gets to do kind of whatever they want.
I think that's all very valid. I think it's really... all good points, and I'm not trying to like disagree with you or argue. Those listening and watching, I think we can all agree there's a lot of different ways this can look. But I'm very much, I guess, when it's all said and done, I want to see. I would like to see Benioff and Weiss trilogy first, because I think that has the most potential for me to be excited. So I'm being a little selfish, and then see what Rian Johnson does. And you know what? This is the schedule that got released this past week. There could be another schedule that drops in a couple months from now, that would include more Star Wars movies. And then maybe we get some insight into, who is in charge of those movies. But last question for this conversation is, how soon do you think that we hear who is in charge of these movies and seeing the first footage. Do we see it this year? Do we see it next year? When's the first time? David, let's start with you.
So they normally start rolling footage, 15, 18 months before the movie gets released?
Yes.
So I would expect that would mean somewhere mid-2020, they're actually starting to film and put things together. So I'd probably say that we're looking probably next summer before we start getting information on who the director is, maybe a little tidbits about where the story is going. Enough time for us to get through The Rise of Skywalker and, hopefully bask in our euphoria.
Good point. That's exactly what I was going to ask. Jesse, are you
pretty much on the same line there. At the earliest, I think we'll start seeing some concept art or some of that those concepts and storyboards maybe kind of hit the internet. I don't think we'll really get a lot of major information until that celebration prior, to that movie that December.
I can roll with it.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's what we're all thinking here on Beyond the Blast Doors. Want to know what you're thinking? You're watching, you're listening. Make sure you comment down in the section below. You can do that whether you're watching or listening. But if you're driving, maybe pull over and do that. But let us know what you think about all these movies, your excitement for who could be helming these movies, and when you think we'll get our first look and real information on those movies. Let us know down in the comments below. Let's go on to the next topic here on this episode 64 of Beyond the Blast Doors. JLS, by the way, says that he wants to see Benioff and Weiss do that whole trilogy, and wants to see Rian Johnson put on like an anthology movie. So that's what he's saying. Hey, let's talk about Galaxy's Edge, okay? So we know that the park is opening up. We have one coming up. California opens up in like about a month. And then we have in August the Florida park opening up. And apparently there's going to be some crowd control. And the article that we have here is by Jermaine over at IO9 and Gizmodo, I believe. And he's talking about how the park will actually quite move you along in the park. And it's pretty interesting. For about the first month that the California park is open, they're going to be having people with wristbands. When you walk in the park, you're going to have a wristband, and you get a 4-hour timer when you walk in the park. And so there will be stormtroopers like monitoring you. And I'm like, my God, this is going to feel like freaking, I don't know, Jeddah. You're going to walk on the planet. You got 4 hours, or else you're going to be executed. I'm getting stressed just reading the article about this, guys. And so, David, you were the one that actually brought this to our attention. And I'd be like, why 4 hours? And then you have like a Disney park official being like, well, a fan is going to get bored. Essentially, she's saying the fan will be bored in 4 hours.
4 hours will be enough to get the experience of the park, and then you'll be ready to go do something else.
So how do you react to that?
That's awful. That's terrible. If I were okay, so I'm poor. So if I had saved my money and I wanted to go to this park as soon as it opened, because you want that experience, you want to be able to say this is awesome. You don't want people to spoil it for you because we know this is going to be heavy in the role play. We've got books, we've got comics, we've got everything that are coming out to kind of create a storyline for this park. And then you're not fortunate enough, or you're not affluent enough to be able to get lodging at one of the role play hotels that are there, and you're suddenly told that you've just booked this vacation and you get 4 hours, I'd be so upset, because how do you really delve into role play in 4 hours? How would I feel if I spent all this money for 4 hours? I would be so furious. This is like Google saying we're rolling out this Google, what did they call their social media platform?
Google Plus.
Google Plus, and then none of their execs have Google Plus profiles.
Well, that's actually what happened, because
that's
Google,
exactly what happened.
Google actually took away Google Plus, and now it's just for like business people.
And so this would be so upsetting. This is like, David, I got this really great thing for you. It's called Star Wars.
Yeah,
we're gonna watch a movie, and it's gonna be called The Phantom Menace. And we're gonna watch 3 movies.
Yeah.
And then we're going to wait like 3 years until you can afford to watch the next 3 movies, which are arguably the best. I mean, this is terrible.
Well, someone actually would argue that's how the prequels worked out for a lot of us.
No, that's true.
I mean, I was like 9, so I had to save up money to go to the theater for Attack of the Clones.
I mean,
I regret that investment.
I feel bad for the diehard Star Wars fans that are going out there and they get
4 hours.
4 hours, 240 minutes.
Those people that slaved away to get their reservation the other day online. And here's the way I'm looking at this. There's 2 rides in this park. Smuggler's Run, Rise of the Resistance. And if these lines, stop touching your microphone, I can hear that on my ear, you clown. The Force was not with you in that moment. Anyways, the point is, there's these 2 rides, right? They're saying that the lines for these rides could be 2 hours in themselves. So if you only get 4 hours, Jesse, you get maybe one ride for sure, and then maybe you get time to get some Gold Squadron lager, go over to the lightsaber shop, maybe go over to the cosplay building where you can get your robes.
Check out the Legos.
Well, like I said, I'm going to swoop in.
So what
under the
happens
radar.
if you're standing in line for one of these rides and your 4-hour timer expires? Are they going to pull you out of line?
You there must exit the park.
Let me see your idea. Well, that's when you just pull a Cassian end or shoot the guy that's next to you in the back and climb the side of a building to escape.
Yeah, but we can't do that here.
That would actually be kind of funny to see someone scale a wall.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going is it a beacon that goes off? I can't remember what the article said, but it'd be funny if the light starts flashing and then it's like a stormtrooper sees you.
They said color-coded wristbands.
Oh,
so my thoughts are just getting one of those like Tyvek ones that, look, you get the red hour, that's 10 to 2, and then you get the blue one. And
that means like they're
3 to 6.
this is a temporary thing though. Again, from what I understand, it's from like the
first 4 or 6 weeks.
May 31st to June 23rd at the California location. We don't know if this will be the case the first month in Florida either.
So I can understand why they're doing it. They're wanting to make sure that, everything, is running smooth, I guess. But I mean, is this like, were you only able to reserve like one day? Like, is that it? Or?
Well, no, our friends over at Lords of the Long Box, they were able to get 4 reservations.
Okay, so, I mean, I can understand. Okay, so 4 hours, that's it for the day. And you can go back the next day, do something different for 4 hours.
Yeah, but that's money every day going to the park. I mean, if you look at it now, I think it's like $60 or $70 a ticket to go to Disney World. Yeah, but here's the thing. Think about this. Disney World tickets are always like legit. Like they never expire. Mm-hmm. So if you would have bought like 50 tickets in 99, you could have used those in 2019 and gone for that price, which is crazy.
Huh.
So now I guess if you don't want to pay more than $77 to ever go to Walt Disney World, now is the time to buy in bulk.
So
can you get that at Costco? Can you get Walt Disney World tickets at Costco or Sam's?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think you can only get like Olive Garden and
so
gift
here's
cards.
a question for you, David, and Jesse. Maybe pick this up at Celebration. So you have to pay money to get into the park, and then you have to pay more money to get into the Galaxy's Edge?
No, I don't think that's how it works.
No, I kind of...
That's not how I understand it.
Because, like, for example, like I mentioned before, when I went to Disney in Florida, that was when they launched Animal Kingdom. Okay, and that was kind of included in the whole thing. Like we were able to easily go from like Epcot straight into like that.
But Animal Kingdom
area
has significant more acreage than Galaxy's Edge. But didn't we learn it was something like 3.5 acres or something?
It was like 13 acres.
13 acres?
3 acres. I don't even think you could fit a food court on that.
13 sounds better.
Yeah, 13 sounds way better.
But Animal Kingdom is significantly larger than that.
Well, again, like I said, I mean, as far as in that ticket cost and that price, it wasn't like, welcome to Animal Kingdom, we need $60 more from you or something. Like it wasn't like that.
Now how they kind of roll are all the Disney parks are separate, but then you can get a park hopper pass for a discount if you're going to hit 2 or 3 or all 4 of the parks out there.
It may have been something that changed. I mean, honestly,
I
was in 5th grade when we went, so it's a very long time ago at this point for me. So
very long for you.
Yeah,
very.
Because you're like what, 40 now?
I'm going to be 32 at the end of the month.
Well, you look 40. Okay, so we want to know what you think about Galaxy's Edge, and we'll get some clarification because, I mean, it's a park with. I thought it was its own park, which means it would have its own admission fee.
Yeah,
that's how I understand that. I don't think it's like you buy a Disneyland ticket and then you just get in to go to Galaxy's Edge. I'm pretty sure like it's its own destination.
See, I was thinking it was part of...
But maybe I misunderstood that, and that's embarrassing. Because when you look at the map, it's all right there too. So what I've done is I've asked folks on the live chat. Maybe they'll have an answer. We'll check back in. Maybe Gilbert is able to do a Google search during the show in this moment, and we'll be able to get you the answer by the end of the show. We'll go something along the lines of that. But we do want to know what you want to know or what you think about Galaxy's Edge as far as, I guess we can all be thankful that we're not going to have wristbands the entire time. We already decided we weren't going to have money to go, so we weren't planning to go for like another year and a half. So we won't have to deal with this at all. And maybe that's the case for you. But let us know either way. Comments down below, whether you're watching live or on the rewind. And real quick, before we go to the next topic real quick. Jordan, can we flash the previous thumbnail again? It was for 2, and it was Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams at Disney at the park. It was the second headline. It was the thumbnail for this segment. Throw it up there. Yeah, there we go. So you're looking at this. I want to point this out. This is Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, Steven Spielberg, J.J. Abrams at the park. They didn't have to get a wristband because they were just able to go on the rides. They probably were there for 45 minutes. They're out there. They're on the Millennium Falcon in front of Smuggler's Run. They're going like to the lightsaber hut. They're going to have the blue-green milk. They're getting to have all these things. Boys, what do you think the excitement level is here? Because I'm really excited looking at these images thinking, wow, as much as it's a business for these people and as much as it's a job and how much crud they get, and they do get praise, but they get some negative stuff too. It's kind of cool just to see them enjoying it as fans themselves, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you have to enjoy your own, I guess your own product. But for many of these people, before it was, before Bob Iger, basically owns, Star Wars, et cetera, he was a fan. He had to be a fan. He went and saw the movies, probably in theater and everything as well. So, you have to love it, and you have to love it to want it to be in your park to begin with. And this is quite the investment. So I think they would be definitely interested in seeing how it pans out and just to see how that experience goes.
David, what did you have to say? But then I want you to answer what you think the conversation, like the actual conversation between these people are.
I think the conversation, well, that was going to be my next thought was, do you think the conversation is they're walking around like, man, I wish we could build sets this nice, this immersive?
Well, if you've seen the behind the scenes of the movies so far in the Disney era, they are large sets and they're going on location. When you go to Skellig Island to shoot those scenes for Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, I don't know how much more immersive you can get than this like super exclusive land in Ireland. Like, I think it's surreal that this is going to be permanent because I think they build these elaborate sets that they had to tear down. Like, so I'm a fan of Big Bang Theory. For example, I went through end of high school into college into adulthood with that series, and they just posted video of them knocking down that set, and you just thought that living room was. It felt like that was going to live forever, and it does on the Rewind on syndication. But here, Batuu will be forever. You will be going to visit Doc Ondor forever. Really looking forward to some of this Black Spire reading material we're going to hear in the near future. But it's going to be around here forever. But it's a conversation that I'm interested in right now. And we did reach out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Beyond the Blast Doors. And I asked everybody, I was like, hey, listen, like what's the conversation? The best answers win. And so I've got some comments here. And Tom says they go to Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar. I've heard that's quite a crowded place. They just steal the Falcon, according to Cousin of Vader. And Stanko Wren says 10:30 a.m. early bird lunch special at Perkins. So I guess you're calling them old, which I wouldn't do because I think JJ's like 55 and he looks 30. It's the reverse effect of Jesse.
He looks younger than I do. So.
Yeah, that guy found the elixir of life. But wanted to shout those people out. As always, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, sharing these photos, asking you for input. So be sure you answer that, and we'll try and shout you out on the show when it becomes available. And now we'll go to the third topic of our show on this episode 64, which is checking in with Star Wars comics, because we've taken a few weeks off from the comics, and that's part of the way was the reformat. We're following the main run. We follow these Age of books right now, and this one caught our attention in this Rebellion era. Because
I feel like you put this one in here just for Jesse.
I kind of did. Age of Rebellion, Boba Fett drops, and I want to do a compare and contrast real quick with the Age of Republic books, but basically what we have here is Boba is on this outer rim planet, gets this bounty, tracks down this bunny hunter, and it's kind of like just seeing Boba do his job, which is collect bounties. That's kind of like the story of the arc, and it's called Hunter's Heart. And so I think you're trying to, at least what we think is we're trying to figure out what are Boba Fett's true intentions when he does a job. And I thought it was pretty cool. Greg Pak does the story. Mark Lemming does the illustration. And I thought it was a good read. It's nothing groundbreaking for canon. Our friend Patrick Covey thought that there was a chance that at the very end there was a real deep dive reference. At the very end there's like this guy's mug that comes up in Aurebesh. I said it wrong. The Star Wars language. Anyways, so he had a cool conversation with Greg Pak on, and I think also with Matt Martin from Lucasfilm, just on Twitter. It's great. Like living in this time, if you want to just talk to somebody, you can just tweet at them and they'll sometimes respond to you. But I wanted to start with Jesse. You read this comic book. You are a Mandalorian fanatic. Did I miss something? Is there something special in this comic that I'm not talking about?
I mean, overall, lots of action. I enjoyed the artwork. So if you're a comic collector and you buy comics maybe just strictly for the artwork or something like that, you'll love this one. I mean, everybody here knows I'm not as big of a comic book junkie as the other Davids are.
We
but
will get you there.
They're working on it.
He got me there.
So
I really did. He spent so much money.
I mean, as far as the story goes, I mean, yeah, it's nothing I'd say groundbreaking or anything like that. It is completely 100% exactly how I've pictured Boba behind the scenes as far as who he is. And I've always felt that he's a morally gray character. And you pick that up while reading that. There's a moment where he gives a dying man water, kind of, so he's got some amount of compassion, but he is all about that job. He is all about that bounty.
And I want to shout out Marie Wilson, who's with us in the live chat. Marie Wilson with BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. It is so cool, satisfying, exciting that we can say that she's with us, part of this team. And she writes for us on BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. She did a review of this comic, did a really nice job on that. And she's in the chat, seconding what you're saying about the artwork especially. There's this one panel where Boba Fett is flying out of this explosion. It's just fire around him, and it looks incredible. And that's what I like about Mark Lemming's work in general, is that that detail. There are there's just some comics where it doesn't go in depth. And the reason why it takes me so long to read a comic book is I like to get lost in that artwork. And I really like to, in my head, I'm trying to build that 360, every degree world in my imagination. And just looks really good. And also be sure you check out the reviews, especially that Marie does on the website, because what she'll do is she has a section where it's just like canon connections. And that's so helpful because something else that she does is these canon guides, a reader's guide to, we did Count Dooku, and we did I'm spacing on the first one we did, but coming up this week we have How To on Rogue One. And so that's really exciting. Oh, it was A New Hope. The first reader's guide was for the movie New Hope. There we go. But we're doing Rogue One this coming week, and it's so exciting for me, for her to just be like, here's the 6 books you need to read, or here's the 4 books and 2 comics you need to read. She's just doing a really great job. So again, reinforcing the artwork was great. Pax writing is a blast. Reached out to him, and I'm going to reach out to Mark as well and see if any one of them would be willing to come on the show. I think that'd be a great conversation to have.
Oh yeah.
But I feel now that I've said that, Marie has to be part of that conversation as well, or she won't forgive me. Marie, we'll do our best. I promise. David, we love the Age of Republic books with Jody Houser. I feel like, and it's not for better or for worse, but it's maybe a different approach that we're getting with these Age of Rebellion comics. Do you get that sense? Why do you think that's, or am I completely off base?
I'm very excited to see more of these Age of books coming forward with the new author, because with Jody Houser, we noticed this theme of whoever the comic title was getting some sort of mentorship from Yoda or Qui-Gon or Darth Sidious or somebody. There was this relationship that she was trying to promote in all of these comics where they got some little nugget of wisdom that helped them grow as a person. And I didn't feel like we got that out of Boba Fett, but we did get out of Boba Fett was the humanity behind him, that he is giving dying people water and that he is focusing on, what he is as a person, which is a bounty hunter, and that's his identity.
So is this an anti-hero? Is that the character that we deal with here with a Boba Fett? Or do I misunderstand that?
I don't know. But if Jody Houser was all about learning and mentorship, maybe with this next set we're getting identity and who these people are.
I can really roll with that. And by all means, if you're reading Boba Fett or you're reading any of these Age of Rebellion comics, I want you to let us know what you think down in the comments below. Again, I say it every time, but whether you're watching live or on the rewind, you're listening in your car, comment on the platform that you're enjoying this conversation on, where you're participating, because that's what we want. We want you to participate. And let's build off of that. I totally agree that mentorship and hope, and especially I think about like those conversations with Qui-Gon and Yoda in the Qui-Gon single shot. And then, we're focused on the individual more here with Rebellion.
But that could be really exciting because look who we got coming up. We got Han Solo. We got Princess Leia. Are we going to figure out more about Leia when she's on Alderaan and how she really gets invested in helping everybody off her, not helping the rest of the galaxy fight the Empire? I mean, if we're looking at identity is kind of our next theme, I'm really excited for that. I hope that continues.
I'm rolling with that. And then predicting what our theme for Age of Resistance will be. I mean, hope. I mean, that seems kind of bland. We kind of beaten that one to death. I wonder if it's about relationships or maybe it's just about letting the past die.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see. It's a ride, but nonetheless, we'll experience that ride together.
Time will tell.
Episode 64 of Beyond... 64 of Beyond the Blast Doors. I just took us 2.5 months in the past. Let's go ahead and dive in now to number 4 here on the rundown. Journey to the Rise of Skywalker. Books released. Look at this image on your screen right now. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can we please just stand up and applaud the artwork here? What does that mean? You've got Rey in this red up top, and then her reflection, it looks like in water, is Kylo Ren, and their blades are crossing. And to me, this is a great... This to me feels that idea of that we might be getting some like weird dimension or time play somehow in this movie. I mean, it's a stretch, folks. I get it. It's a cover of a book. But that looks really pretty, and I think I'd want that photo on my wall.
This cover is to the book The Art of the Rise of Skywalker, and this is one of the 2 books that they just announced that I'm really, really looking forward to, because these are where we're going to get those really pretty action shots with a lot of the color reflecting off people and the blue hues and the red hues shining against people's faces as they're wielding their lightsabers. I'm really, really excited. Disney, since they took over the franchise, has really done a top-notch job. If there's one thing that they've done better than any other franchise I've ever seen, is the art of books that they've been putting out.
And if we can go ahead, we have a slideshow here of all of the books announced. This was exclusive to StarWars.com. Marie and I have been going back and forth. We want to do something about this. Maybe we might do like our top 5. Maybe the 4 of us. Jordan, if you have a favorite, by all means, all 6 of us, we can do I didn't do my math right there. We can do a top 5 or 6 best books out of that list for the website. But we have that cycle playing through. There's like 20-something books, I think I counted. So
there's a seek and find book that reminds me of Waldo, but it also looks like a coloring book. So that could be cool.
Oh, I bet you could just really pass the time with that.
I could.
We need to find you a date. David, like you found one. You mentioned one of the books that you wanted. Jesse, talk to me about you. What are like 2 or 3 books out of this group, and why? What are you excited about?
Obviously, the initial ones he mentioned, like the Rise of Skywalker books, will be interesting to read. 2 of these caught my attention. I'm kind of a sucker for like the encyclopedia books and everything. So they have another one coming. It's called the Ultimate Star Wars. That's like the title on it, but it's an encyclopedia, so I'm assuming there'll be like some character information. I think the last one I picked up was like a visual guide, and everything was really neat. It had like information about lightsabers and like pictures of like all the various like props and weapons and everything. The other one though, as far as actual like story, I guess, was the one titled Force Collector, which the basic plot summary that they gave with this was a young man who's force sensitive, kind of on a journey to see what that can do for him. Like he's like seeking out the Jedi and everything. So it'd be kind of interesting to see the kind of like this. I don't want to say like random nobody, but like a new character who's familiar with these legends in this, obviously.
Absolutely,
and they're seeking that out.
I do want to clarify something we said earlier in the show. We have had the Princess Leia and the Han Solo Age of Rebellion books out.
Those are already out.
We're still waiting for Luke and the Vader.
Okay.
Tarkin also came out, and Tarkin was a great read as well. He took his shirt off.
It seems like I'm behind.
It's okay. We just caught you up in like 30 seconds.
Is Tarkin wearing his moccasins in any of these panels?
No, I believe he was in his boots,
Slippers.
but he is a very chiseled and scarred man, both inside and out. David, you had one more read that you wanted to shout out, right?
I did. There's one called Journey to Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, the movie making magic of ships and battles.
Okay.
And this one is taking me back to one of the things that originally got me excited about Star Wars going back 20 years. And I think we talked about this with Pete Fletcher in one of our interviews, or maybe it was, off screen. But there was a movie that they produced, like an educational movie. It was at the Science Center down in St. Louis as a kid, called Special Effects. And I think Anthony Daniels and C-3PO and R2-D2 actually like hosted this.
Oh, that's cool.
And they went through and they talked about, and they showed how they did a lot of the Star Wars stuff and the Independence Day and E.T. and all these really cool movies, how they did the practical effects, before we went all digital for stuff.
Well, and that reminds me of like that fun